similar as well. The only real disparity in their stats is the total KDA, and that's just because of the fact that Gabe Vizzle, it typically ends up with fewer deaths than Starboy does in the course of their games, but they're both very good players. Gabe Vizzle, I think, is just so well known as being this guy that can reflex block seemingly more abilities than it seems like he should be able to at times. And so that's why this matchup is going to be so intriguing. You have the guys who started the reflex block as many things as you possibly can versus the guys who are amazing at reflex blocking.
Yeah, we'll see how it's going to pan out. I want to start to talk a little bit about the draft here because Cloud9 brought out some interesting stuff yesterday. They actually played the TSM composition with their captain Koshka and the jungle Cruel. Like, how do you prepare for this matchup against Cloud9 if you're Nova? Knowing that came out yesterday, is that something that you have to actively build your draft around and make sure that you can't fall to that?
Well, it depends. If you get Lance, then Lance is going to be really good into a Cruel, for example. And then you can also ban one of the other, like either Koshka or take Cruel away, and they won't be able to play that composition because it's a double stun composition. That's why it works really well. And on top of that, you have like a Vox silence. So it depends on what Nova lets through in the draft.
So it totally depends on the first few picks then. What do you expect Nova to be leaning towards in this draft then? Are they just going to be kind of sticking to the meta with this kind of Catherine Batiste style of play?
I would expect them to be trying to look for that. They are going to ban away the Idris. So again, this is something that some teams are starting to do. You ban away the Idris, you force your opponents to either take away one of those two healers, then you get the other one, or you can look for a Baron if they don't ban away the Baron. But it is going to be the Catherine ban. So
yeah,
this is something we saw a couple times in
Europe.
This
is the drafts they did. Both teams did yesterday. Idris was banned first by Nova, and then they first picked the Baron if it wasn't banned, and then Cloud9 would ban Cath right away. That's something they did yesterday as well. And then Vox is first picked as well for Cloud9 on B side, actually both times yesterday. So this has looked like a pretty decent draft coming out from yesterday, and nothing changing so far. And normally the bans will probably be Lyra and Grace if they're not already taken. So Cloud9 is probably going to ban potentially Grace and then force Nova to ban Batiste or Cath against them, or Batiste against them, for example. Batiste they're going to take away Batiste and not allow the Batiste captain for Baron here.
Yeah, and Starboy is he's a big fan of that Batiste captain, so being denied his signature pick here. But Koshka also going to be taken off the board, not wanting that to go over to the side of Cloud9.
Yeah, so it's a smart ban because Cloud9 is a team that can use the Koshka as either a jungler or apparently now a captain as well. So it makes sense just because Joseph is such a strong Koshka. You don't want that massive early aggression coming out into a Baron especially.
Yeah, Grace is open and Lyra is open, so that means Nova will pick up the Lyra Baron composition, which is extremely strong, and then round it out with potentially, you know, Samuel or something that Delphi plays really well. He also does play Cruel, so that we could see a Cruel come out just so that they can't have any melee engaging onto Cloud9. But Cruel is not good into Grace and Vox, so I doubt they'll play that. If Cruel is open, I think Cloud9 will probably take Cruel with Grace since it's so strong, and double tension bowl can blow up Baron immediately.
Yeah,
so Petal may be a good pick for Nova here if Delphi plays it.
Petal or something like a Kestrel I think could be good for them as well, although the CP Kestrel isn't as good into the Cruel as a weapon Kestrel is.
Right.
So it's not likely to be the Kestrel. Maybe they go for something like a Scarf, but then you're focusing yourself on so heavily into the late game. This is actually putting Nova into a pretty tough spot.
Delphi does Sky.
Yeah, Sky I think would actually be probably one of their better bets here.
Yeah.
Just because it's a safe pick, it works really well with what they have, and it will prevent that Krull, or at least work well into a Krull if the Krull comes out.
Yeah, CP Kestrel won't be as good because Grace, once she maxes her Benediction, her A ability, it has range 9. So she can get onto CP Kestrel very quickly with that Benediction. So Nova's going to go ahead with the comfort pick and pick Samuel here, which now leaves Cruel open for Cloud9 to play into it. Or they can play, they're going to actually go with CP Blackfeather instead.
All right, well, there's our compositions locked on in Cloud9, not taking anywhere near as long to pick up that final lock-in as their opponents on Nova, who seriously thought about that final pick. They were definitely trying to figure out the best way that they could build this composition, but they do have the Baron, which is always going to be a nice little pickup for them. We've seen Blackfeather be picked into Baron quite a lot, though. Do we feel like that's going to be significant here for the lineup of Cloud9? Do we feel like that is enough to quell the tide of damage that Baron offers?
It should be quite significant because not only can Blackfeather get onto the Baron, and because of this draft, there's not really too many ways for them to peel for the Baron. But then you have the Grace. I still think Grace is one of the stronger picks into Baron because Baron is all about that burst. The moment he starts that burst, you start healing that target. They are not going to go down, and you have plenty of time before those jump jets are up again to try and take that Baron out. So, and not to mention the Holy Shield, if you can get it onto, directed at the Baron, it's going to reduce his damage by 40%. So it's Grace, I think, is a really strong pick into Baron, but Baron has overcome Grace before, so who knows?
Baron has overcome a great many things. Final thoughts, quick, Jeff?
Comps are equal. It's going to be who's going to execute first. I think Cloud9 is going to execute a little better here.
All right, Cloud9 are heralded on their mechanics. We'll see if that's going to come to fruition in this game. But it's time to head on into our second semi-final. So make sure to get online on Twitter and let us know whether you're a Cloud9 fan or a Nova fan. Who are you cheering for? Let us know with that hashtag Vainglory8. But let's jump on into this game. Second semi-final underway. It's Cloud9 against Nova.
What up, fam-a-lambs? My name is George, joined by Scoundrel. I had to get it in, man. It's been on my mind all day. We're into game number 1, Cloud9 over on the Reds. Over on the blue side, we've got Nova.
What? Okay. I think this is an interesting draft here. I definitely think as this game progresses, I would give the advantage over to Nova, not only because they've got the Baron, but also because they've got plenty of ways to keep that C9 composition at range. And I do really struggle to feel that C9 as a unit might struggle to actually collapse on this Baron easily, given that realistically their only way of getting onto him is going to be this Grace with her benediction. Once that's down, there's not many other ways to jump on him and capitalize on that. So that's my one worry here for C9. C9, I really want to see them aggress in the early game. Oh, Gaviz actually gets that. Actually gets it from a basic attack as well.
Oof. It's pretty punishing from Lone Delphi there. Didn't manage to get anything more, though. Old School went fairly low. Truth is going to use those jump jets as safety, as Joseph and Gaviz will do rotate in the lane. That is Cloud9. They're taking a small advantage in that sense, but Old School has been punished fairly heavily right now. Is a little bit behind this Baron in CS, or at least will be.
I think if C9 can snowball this, and they can continuously find engages and keep putting pressure onto Baron. Like, I think the golden rule people always talk about is you kind of want to, whenever Baron gets picked in EA, and as Suijay was talking about it yesterday, is that if you can take 3 turrets before Baron hits 3 items, it's usually a good metric to having the advantage over a Baron. So if you get to the point where Truth is sitting on 3 items and C9 have failed to, even take 1 or 2 turrets, you would imagine that the Nova guys are going to be pretty happy with that. So that's probably where Nova are aiming, just try and weather the storm, and they've got incredibly good composition to do that with. The Samuel, he's going to have that range advantage for the most of the game until Joseph gets level 8. They're going to have great siege, and I can see why C9 are looking to aggress as a unit so heavily onto Lone Delphi, because they know that they need to put pressure on now if they can, because the longer they let this go, the better it's going to be for Nova.
Yeah, Truth is going to be kind of a sitting duck if Gabe Visual has anything to say about it, but we all know Baron can be fairly mobile, and with the protection from Starboy on the Lyra, it's going to be fairly hard, you can imagine, for Cloud9 to jump on them, but like Suijay said on the desk, both these compositions are fairly equal, and it's all going to come down to the execution, and you got to give it to Cloud9 in that regard, and I think Suijay just said that too. Cloud9, one of those teams, we know all these players. They've been around for a long time, and they've not only seasoned, but they've proved that they are one of the best, or if not the best team in Vainglory right now. And how coming up against Nova here, a more new team, not in terms of players, but in terms of an organization coming into the VGA, it's going to be a tall order, you can imagine.
And the amount of movement speed, the amount of heal, the amount of disruption, bright bulwark that Nova have, I still feel it's going to be very tough for C9 to find the engagement that they want. One of the ways that they could win these out is by, especially post level 8, using Joseph to just get some really critical on points, and then finding Grace to use that engage, and Old School can then just follow up. But I'm starting to struggle to see where C9 are going to claim their advantages. It might just come through mechanical outplays in teamfights, because realistically, I don't think they've got the better teamfight in general. Although Truth, gotta be careful.
It's going to be very careful. Holy Nova does actually land. It's going to land on Low Delphi. Old School's positioning is perfect. Look at him at the side there. just completely untouched and picks up first blood as well for his troubles. Delphi goes down, and now Nova in a 2v3. Or at least they were until Joseph ended up backing off. But Cloud9, execution heavy, and they executed well.
A little bit over-aggressive from Nova in their positioning here. They kind of gifted C9 that fight. Unfortunately, Starboy, or rather, I think it was Delphi, stuck between a rock and a hard place. He was trying to kite forwards with that drifting dart to put pressure on to allow Truth and Starboy the room to escape, but alas, paid for it with his own life. Need to take your foot off the acceleration pedal if you're Nova here. Don't need to over-aggress. You just need to allow Truth that time to scale up. He's now got that Sorrow Blade. The first item on that checklist has been completed. Now, C9 can obviously, in the late game, rush down this composition, and obviously, Old School will be able to just be it will be very, very cheap build for Old School. Once Old School gets those 3 items, he's likely going to hit those before Truth can. So it's a very cheap build for Old School. So there is the opportunity for them to just straight up rush down. You know, like Gabe Vizzle's doing here. Finally engage with the Benediction and literally run at your opponents and then try and deal with them before they have the opportunity to kite back. And that's maybe where C9 are going to look for some wins in this mid game. I think the mid game is going to be so important to C9. That's where they kind of need to exploit their advantages. You know, level 8 on Isle of Joseph is a big spike for him. Probably 2 items on Old School. He's going to want to get that tension bow. That might be a big spike for him, especially around that level 8 time for Joseph. That is where I think C9 need to look to pull the trigger, put their foot on the acceleration pedal. Truth, going to catch out Old School maybe.
Old School's very, very caught out here, overextending to the absolute max. Ends up going down there. Lone Delphi did pick up that Frostburn, so there's really nowhere for Old School to go as soon as he blew that Sonic Zoom in the boots. Does end up sacrificing his life, and now Cloud9 playing on the defensive.
Yeah, and that was, again, a little bit of a mistake in terms of positioning there for Old School. It's something that we just don't often see from him. Truth going to be forced to jump jets over the wall. Nice jump jets, though. We'll get him out of safely. The scout trap will also at least give vision of their retreat. And Joseph now looking to put pressure on. He might be able to just on-point this away. Doesn't.
Very close. Oh, does run into Starboy, though. That 2-level lead can be quite punishing sometimes, but Starboy has got that sigil to heal him up, so he's going to be all good. Now Cloud9, they do have priority over this lane. We'll see what I Love Joseph is going to pick up next. It will be that Shadow Glass, like you were saying. And now he's really coming online. There's this poke machine that Blackfeather can be, or at least CP Blackfeather can.
Yeah.
Now Old School, you can imagine, wants to fight too, almost completing that tension bow.
One of the other things that I think C9 will have in their back pocket in the late game potentially, as I know I talked about how their mid game is so important, you will probably see an Echo come out for Gabe Vizzle. Now, Echo Gabe Vizzle with a CP Blackfeather, that does give CP Blackfeather a lot of time in the back line. You know, he's going to get the Holy Shield twice, which gives him the 40% damage reduction, plus the shielding that he's going to get from his on-point, and he'll get the double heal, which could be very influential to his ability to just, you know, run at the likes of Lone Delphi or Truth and stick to them like glue. And if CP Blackfeather can stick to someone, he can deal incredible amounts of executing damage, especially with his on-point and obviously his A. He can literally execute them so easily with the true damage once he's got max Heartthrob stacks. So I think that could be a way that C9 look to play the late game. You use Gabe Vizzle as the initial soak, and then it's up to I Love Joseph with the double divine intervention on him to just be that massive influence, sticking to the Baron and the back lines. The other way is that you try and kite in with Old School, and Old School receives that kind of treatment from the divine intervention. But if I were C9, I'd be saying Joseph is my boy to get to that back line. Double divine intervention on him, very hard to take him down. Sustains through the burst from the Baron as well, because that's one of the most important things. That's why people build Slumbering Husk against Baron. It's just sustaining that double basic attack, and if you can sustain that double basic attack, you actually have a massive advantage against Baron in a fight.
Do, and especially when, like you said, he gets those Heartthrob stacks building up on the Baron. Depends if Truth can reposition himself quick enough. He is very, very strong at this current moment with the Tension Bow and Sorrow Blade. Cloud9 starting up this gold mine, however. Now, Starboy is off to the sidelines here and does have a flare on it, and actually that does deter Cloud9 completely here. They ignore it and go, okay, so we won't actually fight that. We know Nova actually rotating to the lane now as Truth does end up showing. Delphi does get jumped on here. Gabe Vizzle going fairly low. Is level 6 with a divine intervention, but still has that fountain too. Bright Bulwark paying a lot of dividends now to Starboy, as it looked like I Love Joseph and Old School wanted a piece of that action.
Level 8 on Joseph now, so they have got that range on the on-point. If you can find those snipes onto Truth or to Lone Delphi, they can be pretty influential, given that there's no shielding for either of them just yet. Joseph has got the Shattered Glass as well, which means they're going to hit pretty hard. Ion Cannon comes down. Zones out, buys some space for Nova here.
Be really important for them. Now, Cloud9, you can see Low Delphi off to the side, Joseph off to the side, trying to poke out Lone Delphi or Truth at the same time. That's a lot of damage. You can see Old School denying a lot of that healing as well that is coming out from Lone Delphi and Starboy. A very easy route for him, this build path. He doesn't, like, he's not going to get punished for this at all. Joseph is going to go in, though. Lone Delphi's going to get found. The Divine Intervention comes out as well. Joseph's going to get healed up. Oblivion does get caught out completely, but hang on a minute. Lone Delphi's already dead. Truth is going to have to just escape here. Starboy can't really much health. There's going to be Truth jumping away with the jump jets. Joseph is low. Old School is fairly out of energy as well. Yeah, Vizzle only used one proc of that Divine Intervention. Hasn't got Echo just yet, but Cloud9, they are going to look to stay this turret.
They got Fountain still. Fountain comes out for Nova.
Oh, big Divine in. No, Divine, not Holy Nova even was used, and that will be a kill going over to Starboy. Turret is going to fall down as well. Cloud9, very, very forceful of these turrets. They know they need to take them. They cannot sustain against Truth's damage in the late game.
Well, this is the mid-game spike that C9 needed to use. Old School, again, maybe overextended here. Doesn't get the healing cap, goes down. Nova take a little bit of reprise from that turret going down here. 2.5 items now for Truth. So he's getting towards his late game here. Jaws.
Not cool, Old School. Not cool. It's not cool when you overextend. Exactly what he's done twice now. I mean, is it a thing with Voxes today? They just love overextending, love mispositioning. I don't know. Sonic zooming in the wrong direction. Happens, though. Does happen. I get that. I can understand that. Old School being called out, though, will lead Nova at least a little bit of reprise for the moment. But Old School spawning fairly quickly at this time in the game. He's going to be able to return to the lane rather sharpish.
So, I mean, for that small mid-game fight, Nova did still have the ability to just, oh wait a second, the Baron's going to have to be so careful here. We'll get away. Truth does manage to jump over and run to safety. But they are still stalling out. C9 need to keep looking to find those fights. This is really intelligent from C9, drawing the attention to the gold mine, baiting out either a steal or a straight-up fight, which I think they're going to want because Echo has been completed by Gabe Vizzle now. Like we said, the Echo Grey is going to be so influential. Overstep here by Starboy.
Uh-oh, yep. Takes half his HP bar with him as well. Old School has got that poison shift, so denying a lot of that healing, and has actually just picked up that breaking point as well. Gold Miner once again started up by Cloud9. This is their third attempt. Will they make it third time's a charm? Truth coming in. Doesn't have Ion Cannon. Who's going to steal it? Is it going to be a steal? It's not indeed. Straight on the back line already. Truth's been just taken out. Starboy's going to be the next target. In fact, Lone Delphi is on the front line. Oddle just dip, duck, dive, and dodging forward. Divine Intervention to keep him nice and healthy, as well as that. There's the Fountain as well. Lone Delphi is off to the side. Is going to get that recall off. Cloud9 secured 2 kills and secure the gold mine.
Who needs a front line when you've got a double Divine Intervention giving a 40% damage reduction to your 2 squishy targets? They become your tanks here, Jaws. And it's exactly how we thought it would play out. They take that frontline role, they get the backup from the Divine Intervention from Gabe Vizzle, and they're dealing that consistent damage, which in this mid-game is very hard for the Nova lineup to keep up with. Old School now at the 3-item build. Actually, Truth meets him there at his own 3 items, but Old School does have the reflex block on board and the tier 2 boots and a little bit of armor to boot. So Truth a little bit behind, but you would imagine that to be the case. D9 playing a really intelligent game here, just forcing these fights where they are strong. You know, their win condition was, don't let Baron get to late game, keep forcing fights where you can. Probably want to wait for the Echo to come back up unless they find a really thick, well, okay.
I don't know. I don't know. Joseph completely ignores your advice. Divine Intervention is going to heal him up a good chunk of his HP, 600 to be precise, and now Nova are playing him more on the back foot. That echoes up in 20 seconds. Divine Intervention up in 37. So they can fight the next time the wave does roll around as well. Going to be an Aegis finished here for Old School. Truth. Oh dear, not the time to shop. Does jump jets over the wall. Cloud9 going to chase? No, they are not. In fact, Gabe Vizzle is going to chase. Benediction onto Lone Delphi. Starboy off to the side. Holy Nova does end up missing, but a massive silence. Oblivion's going to come through. It's going to get completely blocked. Iron Cannon in the middle of that bright bulwark, but Joseph just cuts him down where he stands. They do trade 1 for 1. Old School for Truth. And now Gabe Vizzle is on the sidelines here. Has got Echo. Divine Intervention in a couple of seconds. Nice benediction onto the minions to get away. Joseph is going to get that recall off as well. So no real advantages gained here for either team.
Probably better for Nova, though, wouldn't you say? Like, going even at this stage in the game, that's not a bad thing for Nova. They kited very nicely back to their Crystal Sentry and used that as a refuge. D9 unable to commit too hard. Whoa, Joseph looking for an engagement to Starboy.
Oh, he wants to take him down. He wants to take him down right now. Okay, Vizzle is up to the sidelines to help as well, but Joseph doesn't need it. There's the Divine Intervention once more. Just keeping him just nice and topped up. I just can't believe how broken Echo is. I mean, balanced Echo is. They are going to start this gold miner up again.
I mean, actually, people overlooked that item for so long, thinking, no, I don't know how good a double ability is, and then suddenly it just like skyrocketed in terms of popularity. I think it's because people are finding the right ways to use it. And obviously with the likes of Grace, where she has such an impactful ultimate, and the fact it's on such a short cooldown anyway, means your Echo's going to be on short cooldown as well, especially in the late game. Something that we don't talk about, by the way, with Grace, the fact that her ultimate's on a 30-second cooldown. So when she uses the Echo, she's going to get the Echo scaling off a 30-second cooldown, which means the Echo's going to be on a shorter cooldown as well. So basically going to be infinite heals coming out from Gabe Vizzle. And you can see how influential it's been for Joseph. He goes to the front line, stacks his broken myth, does it for free, gets the backup of the divine intervention to mean that he's able to continually hit when he's hitting up towards 6 to 7 broken myth stacks, meaning that he's able to just tear through that backline when he gets that opportunity.
So I just can't believe Cloud9 right now. Execution heavy is what SuiJ said, and they're executing perfectly. 15 minutes on the clock. And Cloud9 taking a firm grasp of this game. They are 5,000 gold in the lead right now. They are just pushing on to Nova's second tier turret here. What is going to happen next? What can Nova do to really come back into this game? Because right now Cloud9 are taking the fights, and they take it where it matters as well. Finding the setups also perfectly. Gabe Vizzle being the main catalyst to these fights as well, you've got to imagine.
Yeah, and I really like what they've done with the heavy investment into armor. Gabe Vizzle's gone for the metal jacket, and obviously Joseph and Old School now sitting on coated plates. People often don't realize how ineffective Atlas can be against Baron, because he's got a fairly low attack speed anyway, and realistically the only thing that makes Baron so good is that double basic attack that he gets from his jump jets. That's that burst damage that he can sort of land down onto a target. And that's the one thing that you want to block, which is why Slumbering Husk has become a pretty popular item against him. And actually Grace allows you to do that with the 40% damage reduction. It just reduces the overall damage of the critical strikes of the Baron, which is really strong.
They really want this turret, but are they going to be able to take it? Nova now chasing. War Trades is actually going to get popped here. Divine Intervention on Joseph. He's going to go onto the back line. Delphi's in a lot of trouble. In fact, they're actually just going to target Truth. Benediction on Tim. There comes the Oblivion, but it's not going to be enough. It's going to get blocked. Another Divine Intervention on Joseph to keep him nice and topped up. Starboy's going to fall. Now Lone Delphi, the last member alive, the lonesome duckling, is going to get cut down. And Old School is going to find the ace, and Cloud9 once again dominating on the fold. Sentry's going to fall and actually just get eliminated. Cloud9 are going to go for the Kraken as well.
Split their rotation. Old School's going to get a turret. They're going to start up the Kraken. There should be an easy 1-2 sweep. Wonderful re-engage or a counter-engage from C9, and it's that ability to have Joseph with very few tanky stats behind him, very few resistances built up, act as your front line because of how much the Holy Shield reduces the damage output of Truth and Lone Delphi. The bigger your damage in terms of a single blow, the more effective the Holy Shield is going to be, because you just reduce so much more damage with the 40% damage reduction against like the Baron critical strikes, or, you know, for instance, the empowered Malice and Verdicts. You just get a bigger impact of that 40% damage reduction because the numbers are bigger. It's just maths, right? So it's such an influential pick against the Baron, and with the Echo, it means you have, you know, at least 3.5 seconds time in a team fight where 1 or 2 of your members split across that 3.5 seconds are going to be essentially taking a huge chunk of damage less than Baron, and any damage they do take is likely just going to get healed up by the end of the channel.
Cannot believe these fights are lasting so long. Speaking of fights and lasting so long, Joseph's going to dive in on the backline again. Divine Intervention heals him up, 890 HP. I've got to mention the numbers every single time because they are absolutely ridiculous. Kraken is just marching down those turrets, is smacking away, crumbling them. In the front line stands Starboy. He is taking a fair bit of damage. Gabe Vizzle has found Lone Delphi though. Iron Cannon is going to come down. Truth dashing forward. They find one kill. This could be their opening they were looking for. Joseph falls, Gabe falls as well. Old School is going to get out alive. Truth trying to find that last ace kill, but it's not going to be there. That Kraken is going to go down though, but it will take 1.5 turrets with it.
That is always the most... I think this is... You know when in football, people say you're always most vulnerable when you've just scored a goal? Pretty common saying in football if you sort of watch it. You're always most vulnerable when you're sieging with Kraken, because you have to split your focus between trying to go for the turret with Kraken or trying to sort of bait out a team fight or get enough damage down so that you could win a team fight or a tower dive. That is probably, when you're ahead, the most vulnerable time in the game to throw. And I think we've seen it across multiple games in the VG8 that teams are still not quite sure how to approach these team fights properly. Some people dive in looking to put pressure on the members. Some people dive in putting pressure on the turrets, but then you're going to take free damage because the enemy are kind of very safe behind that 2-turret wall at their Vein Crystal. Doesn't mean much for C9 though. They still have a massive advantage to play with here, but you are looking at a very, very fully built Baron who's now sitting on tier 2 shielding and tier 3 boots for the mobility as well. C9 will still have to be careful about how they play these fights. They cannot afford to be lackluster with the timings of their fountains or with the timings of their divine interventions.
Well, it just pick up War Treads as well, so Visual and the team are going to be a lot quicker. Speaking of War Treads, they're going to pop them right now. They're going to dive into the back line. Truth in a lot of trouble. Hang on a minute. Capacity Rage is going to lead him to safety, but he just ends up falling once more. Old School gets a massive heal, and they will just chase down Lone Delphi. And in fact, Starboy is going to be the next target. Cloud9, they find 2. They might just find Lone Delphi if he's not careful. This could just be the end of the game number 1 here at Scoundrel. 38 minutes, 38 seconds, 31 seconds on the clock for both Truth and Starboy. Last turret is gonna fall. Gabe kicks it to death, and Joseph is just gonna jump on Lone Delphi for the style points at this point. That's gonna be it. Cloud9, they take the crystals, they take the base, and that'll be game number 1 going over to them.
Cloud9 got a really good mid-game advantage and ran with it so well so that even by the point Baron had picked up 4 items, they were so far ahead in terms of their own individual both defensive and offensive itemization that they were able to play these team fights so well. One of the major things that I want to touch on is how Gabe Visual separated and managed the use of his ultimate to allow his essentially his backline to become his front line and dive that Baron. But I can't stress how important Holy Shield is at defending against the burst that a Baron brings to the table. 40% damage reduction on Baron's auto attacks is no mean feat, and that did allow C9 to dive and just go hard as a unit.
Beautifully executed composition from Cloud9 once again. I mean, we can't really not expect this from them at this point. They're looking so strong. We'll see if they can continue that in game number 2. But we're going to jump straight onto the analyst desk, and they're going to break that game down a little bit more.
Well, Cloud9 were touted as the favourite coming into this one and proving it absolutely right there. Strong early game, and then one single fight once again is like the catalyst to the snowball, and once they got that rolling, they kind of ran away with things. I mean, talk me through the early game just a little bit here, guys. Where did this all start for this team?
I mean, it really all started once they got into those level 6s, having the ultimate available. You know, Grace was able to just keep this team alive so incredibly well, and they were able to prevent Baron from having that massive amount of burst that we typically see. You know, a lot of times it was the Holy Shields getting thrown down. When she uses that Retribution, it just prevents the Baron from being able to have that damage output that we normally are accustomed to.
Yeah, and the 940 mark was a critical time there. Cloud9 actually secures 2 kills right here around this point. They get 2 kills here, and then they get the first turret, which allows them then to get gold mine at the 1130 mark. And they bait the gold mine at that point, and Nova tries to contest it, which is really risky, and then they get an ace and the gold mine there.
And that's the moment I was about to bring up. That 1130 fight was where things really started to tilt in the favor of Cloud9. This team fight was the most decisive of the early game.
Yeah, that was a beautiful Vox Silence, and then engaged by Joseph on there, and then and Grace with the Echo and the Divine Intervention. I mean, getting the double heals allowed them to really be able to stay aggressive and soak up the damage and get those kills.
Yeah, and you can see there, I mean, Old School and Joseph both getting a heal, and then the fountain comes out afterwards. That's what's, I think, the strongest thing about having the Echo Divine Intervention, is you can hold that fountain for so long, and it's just, your opponents just, you have to basically burn through their health bars 3 times over in order to find a kill, and it makes it so difficult to play against.
Yeah, and that's where things like the Poison Shiv come into play, but when you're playing Baron, you don't really want to build Poison Shiv.
You don't build Poison Shiv. You have to burst down and protect the Baron and heal him as much as possible. If Baron is out of position, then it's going to be a really tough game. And Cloud9, what they do really well is they split up. You notice that against Baron, they don't collapse on top of each other, which is not what you want to do, because Baron and Sammy are AoE. But you look at the positioning, they often back off when Baron jumps, and they try to avoid that double rocket attack. And then you see Joseph going in there, and they try to split up as much as possible so Baron doesn't get, and Samuel don't get that AoE damage. So Cloud9 is executing their comp so well. And they're really good at understanding their win condition, and their objective game was really great. They killed Starboy at the 14-minute mark, took the gold mine, and immediately took Sentry. They just knew what objectives to take and push.
Yeah, and it's the speed at which they do that as well. The call is made and everybody's on the same page. They just fly through the jungle, grabbing everything on the way, and then obviously managing to snowball that into a victory. And now when we start to look towards the next game of this series, is there something that you can do if you're Nova to try and counteract this action that's going on? Do you just have to consider banning Grace, or does that just open up other nightmares for Cloud9 to play? I
mean, it's always going to. This is a decision that you have to make, but I feel like banning away the Grace is probably just a very smart call because it is such an influential... If you're going for a burst focus composition, you need to take that Grace off the board because she is so good at countering burst specifically. Like Grace is literally anti-burst. And so they built a very heavy burst composition into a Grace, and end result speaks for itself.
How do you feel like swapping sides here, Suijay, is going to affect how these two teams are going to be playing into this one?
Yeah, Cloud9 is going to ban Kath, but more specifically, it's how Gabe played that game. He landed some really great Holy Nova stuns onto Baron, onto Lyra. So it's really, you know, even though Grace does counter the burst, it's really how Gabe played all the captain characters that he gets. So Nova needs to counter Gabe, basically, to win these matches. So they're going to go ahead and pick up the Vox, leave the Lyra open, because Vox with Poison Shiv is actually pretty good into Lyra. So let's see if Nova's going to pick up that Lyra, or they're going to opt to take the Batiste right off the bat. I think they probably will take the Batiste, and then they'll ban Lyra if they do not want to play Batiste Lyra.
Yeah, had it denied from them last game, and a lot of Nova's success revolves around this Batiste pick. But Catherine already taken off the board, so they're not going to be able to get that combo off, so it's very likely going to go into that captain role.
And Blackfeather's a really good ban, because Blackfeather CP is good into Batiste, kind of counters him, because he can escape the Ordain and outpokes him. Cloud9 will probably ban the Lyra here. Actually, they're banning Cruel.
Wow. They leave the Lyra open because Lyra and Grace are both available.
Right.
So they're basically telling Nova, okay, you can have one of the healers. We're going to go ahead and take the other.
Interesting.
Yeah, make sure that, you know, that Batiste is always going to be a flex pick in between the jungle and the captain role. So make sure that if they do flex that to the jungle, the other healer will be still
but Lyra
available.
and Grace aren't as good into Vox. I mean, Grace could be because of the Echo heal, but Vox can dance around her and avoid the Holy Nova stuns, and he's super mobile character. So Cloud9 has the upper hand here because the fact that Vox just works well against Lyra or Grace, so they can get either one and they'll be fine.
Well, it is going to be the Grace coming out for Nova. Obviously, that Echo heal is so strong. We know Starboy is no stranger to building an Echo out of the captain position. It is going to force the Batiste up into the jungle, which I actually almost would have liked to have seen Nova not pick the captain here, because they could still have left that thought open of it being a Captain Batiste. And if you don't pick the captain there, then Cloud9 is likely going to expect
Fortress
it to be
Kashka comes
the
out.
captain.
Okay. Another very aggressive composition. We've seen something very similar earlier on today. This time it's going to be Cloud9 piloting this composition. But this is kind of similar to when you see the Crawl and the Koshka, in that it's just all-out aggression, then the Vox to follow it up.
It's all-out aggression, but it's also very smart because Fortress is another way to apply Mortal Wounds. So they can now apply Mortal Wounds through the Vox and the Fortress and have both of those damage dealers have reduced healing, which is going to be integral against a Grace. If you can diminish the amount of healing coming out from her, you've basically gotten yourself a team fight victory. It's also not a burst-focused composition. So I think Cloud9 just won this draft quite handily, actually.
All right, well, the Kestrel is going to be the final pick here for Nova. Suijay, do you feel like that sways this draft at all? Is that a good pick here?
Definitely late game Cloud9 wins, but early game, Batiste and Grace can contest Koshka, actually. So if Koshka isn't able to snowball, Cloud9 may have a more difficult time. But late game, once Fortress has the Wolves and the Mortal Wounds, that does counter Grace's Divine Intervention a little bit. So, and Cloud9 is better executing, so I think Cloud9 has this one as well.
All right, so significant advantage to Cloud9 then. Is there anything Nova can do to deny that happening? Do they just have to win before you can get to the late game, before things can scale up?
Yeah, that's really their only chance here, is to try and shut down this Koshka using the Grace Batiste. Like Suijay said, they do win early game with that if they execute properly. And if they can shut Koshka down, she never really gets going.
Okay.
And so that's really their best way into winning this game, is to prevent Joseph from having really any impact.
All right, well, It's always going to be a difficult task to shut down I Love Joseph. We'll see if Nova have got what it takes to make that happen. Let us know on social media if you believe in the Nova comeback or whether you think Cloud9 are going to grab this 2-0. Use the hashtag Vainglory8 and get in touch. But it's time to jump on into the second game of this semi-final and see if Cloud9 can finish things out with a clean 2-0 or if Nova are coming back on in.
We'll see if they can come back into this one. Cloud9, though, looking so dominant. Joseph on the Koshka as well. That looks all too scary when your life is on the line.
Yeah, Joseph, I always felt that Koshka has epitomized what I felt Joseph's play to be like. Joseph is a very aggressive early jungler, always was known as the case. Has tempered off a little bit over the last years, given him the ability to play a more balanced game, but Koshka really epitomizes the Joseph that I kind of recognize. That and Taka, I've always seen him as kind of those two heroes being his kind of very classic go-to heroes, and Joseph was one of the guys that piloted the Koshka in the period of North American VG8, where I believe North America had something like a 80 to 90% win rate on Koshka over the split. So, you know, and Joseph was one of the main guys bringing that Koshka to the fold. So I think this is going to be a very aggressive game from C9, kind of doing similar things to what they were trying to do last game, but this time a little bit less measured with the Grace Ultimate, a little bit more all-in with the Fortress. Because, like, I always talk about Fortress and say he has kind of that one button, and that one button is literally go hard as physically possible.
Go hard or go home. I mean, that's exactly what Joseph wants, right? He just wants to jump in, make sure Gabe Vizzle's at his side, and then delete one target. One item, actually, we said it last game. I said it was broken. I said it was okay. The Echo. Is that something actually Joseph wants to get in this particular game? Because we've seen Captain Koshkas go for it, or is that just a wombo combo Captain Koshka?
The problem for going for Echo on a carry hero is that the stats it offers just makes it really slot inefficient. Most heroes have item spikes that are necessary to hit certain power points in the game. For instance, Joseph is, his most likely item spike in this situation is either going to be Aftershock. Wait a second, we'll talk about it in a minute.
Oh, we will, because Lone Delphi's in a lot of trouble. Benediction over the wall, Holy Nova to stun up 2 people. Nice double captive camo stun from Truth. Not sure they can finish that one up. First Blood did get secured by Cloud9, as they did manage to take out Lone Delphi. Joseph's going to get out pretty much scot-free as well with the Haber Gabe Vizzle.
And every time you activate an ability on Koshka, you get 2.5 movement speed, which is pretty insane. Looks like Starboy's not done yet, though.
I don't know. I think Starboy should just hightail it out of there. Does use the boost. Joseph goes back in once again. Ordain stuns him up, actually, but Old School and Gabe Vizzle will be there for his protection. They're his guardians at the moment. Oh, front camps. Yep, Joseph leaves those aligned. Quite smart of his part, but Lone Delphi still wants more action.
Lone Delphi is not stopping here. He's looking to make an invade into Koshka's back. Super aggressive move from Lone Delphi. It's not going to get the healing camp. Major mistake potentially here. Is going to force him to back out with those boots.
It is indeed, because Old School is going to come down as well. That's going to be a lot of damage onto Lone Delphi. Not sure it'll go down unless Joseph finds the engagement. There we go. There's the Pouncy Fun. Holy Nova actually onto Joseph was quite critical there, but Gavis was just going to chase him down and bite him to just finish off that last auto attack. Now Cloud9, they do take the healing camp in the mid as well. They're going all in, X-Scoundrel. This is exactly what you wanted to see, and it's happening.
Yeah, but I think they're punishing a major mistake that Lone Delphi made there. I mean, he did not need to be that aggressive. He was so telegraphed with his invade that it was so easy for C9 to collapse on him. And the whole play hinged on Joseph not being able to burst down that back healing Treon. But he did. And Lone Delphi messed it up. And that was so critical to winning that fight and that sort of set it back invades that if you lost it, you just end up losing it in the whole fight entirely. So it was a very risky play that relied on a very specific set of circumstances. We've got another fight, Old School, going low.
That was very, very close. If Truth hit that first limit shot, he might have taken him down. Didn't actually hit one again, but Old School had healed up in the meantime. They want to make plays happen. They want to make revenge happen. That's exactly what they're looking for. Joseph looking like he wanted to come for a little flank there, but it didn't happen. Wasn't anything too much to gain in that portion of the map. Juggle has intensified, however. That means the item shop is down and available now for the whole of the players. I was going to say the whole of Cloud9, but it's available to Nova too. It's just if Cloud9 actually want them to let them actually use it. That's another question entirely.
So you were asking earlier about why Joseph might not go for an Echo on this Koshka. Again, Echo is actually, as an item, very slot inefficient. So when you buy it, the actual stats that you get from the Echo are really bad. like really bad. Just the actual stats that Echo provides are just not good enough for a carry. So it's good for captains because captains don't necessarily need a huge amount of slot efficiency because, you know, they don't buy their items for the stats. They buy their items for the actives. And where did Joseph?
Joseph. Yep, stun after stun after stun. That's a perfect rendition of what Nova want to pull off in late game. They do manage to take out Joseph for the first kill.
Joseph, I don't really know why he was positioning that aggressively without support from his team. There was no need to be that far up. It's not worth it to steal the forward double camps in most situations, so just gifted them a free kill over to Nova, and now they're going to try and put pressure onto this tier 1. Actually going to get the Ordained down onto Old School here.
Yeah, he's going to be able to get out, though. Bad Mojo draws a couple of them as well. They're going to escape. No worries. Cloud9 shrugged that one off and lived to tell the tale. Now Cloud9 are going to get lane dominant control. Joseph has hit that level 6 mark though, so he does have a yummy kind of frenzy.
And he's going to be very close to actually getting his Aftershock power spike too. A big power spike for a CP Koshka. Joseph does this thing, and a lot of other, I see him do it on Taka as well, where he builds towards a Shatterglass and builds the Heavy Prism first and picks up the Eclipse Prism. But only uses that for the straight up burst damage that those two CP combines provide, and then goes straight for the Aftershock because it's a straight up bigger power spike and easier to achieve.
Ordain onto Joseph. That was a clutch fountain by Gabe Bizzle to keep him alive. Man, Lone Delphi's just not letting him have a moment's rest right now. Ordain after Ordain after Ordain. Beautiful combination with Grace as well with the Holy Nova. If they can call that off again and again, Joseph will have nowhere to run.
Joseph needs to get that Aftershock and then needs to go as a matter of priority towards a reflex block. I mean, Batiste is considered a counter into Koshka for the sole reason that Koshka, as her Blood Rush heroic perk suggests, super reliant on being a mobile, hard-to-catch carry. If you get Ordained, you limit the only thing that makes Koshka so... Well, not the only thing that makes Koshka so powerful, but one of the major things that makes Koshka so powerful, which is her ability to be uncontested in sort of a mobile early game. And Ordained really shuts that down. It limits her to that small area for a very short period of time. Because she's so squishy naturally, it makes her a sort of a shooting range for Truth. So I'd like to see Joseph prioritize that reflex block as soon as possible after finishing the Aftershock, which he can now do. Can get the Aftershock if he likes. He could also go for a Shatterglass, which would be allowing him to get the burst down, but the Aftershock is a better power spike for him and allows him to invest towards a reflex block, which is where he's going.
Wow, it's almost like you telegraphed that, Scoundrel. I love it. Love your colour work. Well done. Well done. It's better than I could do.
It wasn't difficult.
Yeah, I know. I know. I'm just taking the mickey. Now C9. They are just posturing towards this gold miner now. It's rather full at the moment, but we have got another power spike hitting here for Old School. Has finished those 2 items. Although Ordain does land, actually. Oh, Gabe Bizzle in a lot of trouble. There's the attack of the pack, though, to keep him nice and healthy. They're going to jump straight onto Lone Delphi. Big heal, big stun as well from the Holy Nova, but it wasn't going to be enough. Truth just gets dived underneath the turret, and Joseph actually plays her out with his life. Truth ends up sniping him out. Joseph ends up falling, as well as Lone Delphi. Both junglers do bite the dust. Okay, Bizzle almost went down to the start. Had to pop Crucible even, just for the innate shielding he got from that to actually keep himself in the fight.
It felt like Gabe Bizzle was about 2 seconds up ahead of where he should have been there. I think it was a good opportunity to search for a fight, but not the right opportunity for C9 to fight, because like it was good for Gabe given his position, but C9 had to do so much work to actually catch up to Gabe. You saw that both Joseph and Old School had to both pop their boots just to get into range of that fight. And actually, Joseph had his ultimate still up that entire time. Truth didn't use his reflex block either, knowing that it's so important that he saves that solely for the Koshka ultimate. So it was a really nice little set of trades, and Joseph held on to his ultimate because he knew that it'd get reflex blocked, and especially into turret, that's a small section of time where you just don't want to be taking turret damage and would rather be dealing damage outright with your basic attacks. And Truth held on to it, knowing that the Koshka ultimate, if it landed, could spell his doom. So a little bit of a back and forth between those two. Truth getting the upper hand and has gone for an infusion at level 8. Scout traps are going to show Goldminer, and C9 are just going to start to put pressure on it here. They are split though. Old School in lane still.
Infusion actually picked up for Joseph, so signaling he does actually want to fight Lone Delphi. He hasn't got one for himself. Cloud9 are just going to back off though. They don't want to take the fight at the gold miner, as Old School takes a little bit of damage in lane from Truth now. Both of them a nice little power spike each for each of themselves. Sorrow Blade Tension Bow for Truth, and we do have Poison Shiv and Tension Bow for Old School. Now, what is the play here from Cloud9? They've managed to make these fights work, but with Starboy hitting that level 6 mark and that Divine Intervention being available, it's going to be very hard for them to execute one target.
Yeah, hard for them to focus down on target now that the... wait a second.
Well, they might just find it right now. Attack of the Pack does get popped. That wait for it just ends up missing. Joseph trying to find entrance into that fight. Beautiful stun there coming through from Starboy. They're just going to turn this one around completely. Joseph ends up falling down first. Old School trying to kite back as much as he can. Just dives in the enemy team. Just doesn't really care at that point. He knew he was good as gone. And now Gabe Vizzle. One shot, one kill. Lone Delphi is going to chase him up. Benediction ordained. And you are done so. Nova do find the ace, find a triple kill, meaning the ace. Starboy though, beautiful Holy Nova to start that all off.
Yeah, that Holy Nova literally turned the engage round, and I actually think Grace is so good into this composition from C9 because they do want to run at their target. You know that I talked about the fortress really only has one button, and Koshka does as well in some respects, and that is just jump on your target and run them down. That is what Grace loves. Grace naturally, the B is so hard to hit for a reason. It's a very impactful ability when it does hit, but it can be quite hard to land against highly mobile teams. But a team that runs you down, all you need to do is stand in front of your carries and channel the Holy Nova. And it's either going to force them back and buy your carries some space, or they're going to get stunned. Gabe Vizzle has to be thinking about what to use his Crucible on. He wants to use it on the Fearsome Shade because the disengage potential, again, so good against a rushdown composition that the disengage potential of a Batiste, so good in that scenario. But he also has to worry about the Holy Nova. I imagine he saves it for Fearsome Shade every time, but there might be situations where it's better to have it for the Holy Nova, and that might have been one of them.
Holy Nova working out very, very well for Nova right now. Aptly named, I know. Cloud9 now looking to fight. They bought infusions across the board, or at least Joseph and Delphi do have an infusion each. They're not really across the board at all. Just a section of it. One apiece, about a third. There you go, made it up. Cloud9 now pushing on towards this turret. See, the thing is, they haven't got really much of a sieging composition either. Lone Delphi has got a bit of range on his bad mojos on a very short cooldown. Truth has got a lot of damage with those glimmer shots. Cloud9, they have to look for these fights, or at least a pick. It's kind of imaginable, like it was like game 1, right? It was exactly the same, where they couldn't really step up to the turrets because there was too much clear for Nova. So they're in the same situation again. Maybe looking for a small engage here. Gabe Vizzle does end up jumping in. Wait for it comes out. Attack of the Pack as well. Beautiful Holy Nova once more, but that is going to be a massive yummy cannon frenzy on Delphi. And the Divine Intervention just didn't matter at all because Old School and Joseph just end up just bursting him through it. And now Starboy on the run, but just like Cloud9 are just going to take this forward healing camp. Maybe even the gold miner, although not too healthy at the moment. But with that turret going down as well, again, they are just losing out here.
Yeah, they get a kill, but it doesn't mean that they get a huge amount from it, unfortunately. I do like the way that Gabe has decided to build again. He's basically playing body blocker extraordinaire. Just basically face tanks everything with this metal jacket. He's face tanking the glimmer shots, he's face taking everything he can, and that allows his team a bit more space. Starboy did a really good job with the Holy Novas in that last fight, to be honest, once more, but they did manage to land a yummy catnip frenzy onto Lone Delphi, who I don't believe had the time to use his reflex block on it, which then allowed them to lock him down, and despite the Divine Intervention, which almost turned the tide of things, and that is only a level 1 Divine Intervention, by the way, it's only going to get worse for C9 the more levels that gets invested into it. They did manage to take him down.
And the Echo as well. That'll be, I can imagine, the next item. Oh, Truth maybe in a little bit of trouble. Wait for it does end up missing, so Cloud9 can't really find anything off the back of that one. Attack of the Pack wasn't available as well. Something else to kind of keep in mind. One of their main sources of engagement right now is that Attack of the Pack. Lone Delphi, he has been picked on. You can tell that just by his scoreline 1-4, but Truth, that's where the damage is. He's 4-0 at this moment. Tension Bow, 1 Monocle, and a Sorrow Blade, looking pretty good. Well, Dane does land onto Old School. Joseph jumps in, but I think Cloud9 are just going to disengage.
One of the things that the Attack of the Pack will do, it does allow you to chase down a Kestrel quite nicely. So you can keep a wolf on her at all times, and it basically forces her to attack it and sort of delays her ability to slip into stealth. So that's one of the things that the Fortress can be pretty good at, just, making sure that you're able to keep tabs on Kestrel at all times. But otherwise, that's pretty much it. Like, it'll buy some fortified health for Gabe Vizzle. One of the main aspects of Attack of the Pack is that the fortified health is so good at sort of just allowing Fortress to act as that frontline engager, and the Metal Jacket's going to make it even harder to get through that fortified health that he generates from his ultimate.
For Cloud9, they're going to start up this gold miner, however. And saying that, the gold lead actually is in favor. Oh my god, I thought that was the steal then. My heart leapt for a second. I'm sure Cloud9 did as well. Gold is in favor still of Nova, about 2,000 now in the lead. Very hard to sometimes keep track as it sometimes just ricochets out of control, the gold lead, but Infusion's finished again for Joseph and Old School, so they need to look for this fight. And Breaking Point as well got finished for Old School too, so definitely looking for a little something here. But the problem is, I mean, not a problem actually. Let me flip that sentence around real quick. One of the things that Cloud9 and these top teams from NA do, and EU the same, doesn't matter if they've lost a turret. They could just go, okay, so we lose a turret, that's fine. We're still going to fight you on an even ground, which is one of the reasons why they're such a proficient team, and one of the reasons why they're considered one of the best teams as well. Their ability to fight from behind, because most teams you just normally see them crumble when they come up against Cloud9, and Cloud9 do take that first turret. They're doing a fantastic job of staying in the game at the moment, both in aggressiveness and just putting down that vision too.
Cloud9 choosing to take a trade on the Crystal Sentry, which is ultimately going to result in them losing their tier 2 turret in lane. Unsure how worth that is, but the one thing that you do have to remember as a dive composition is the quicker you can take Crystal Sentry off the board, the less of a safe haven the enemy has to retreat to. Actually, Cloud9 looking for a flank. They lose 2 turrets, definitely not worth it, but they have to try and find a fight here.
Yeah, attack of the pack, and Wartread's going to get popped from Nova here. They are in the base of Cloud9, so Cloud9 have that advantage inherently. Beautiful use of the Holy Nova, but Truth is actually just going to be the target for all of Cloud9's fury. They do end up taking him out. Joseph very low on the sidelines here. Bad Mojos are like 4 blown Delphi. He's just trying to get out alive. Triple Holy Nova will just make sure he's alive for the moment. Starboy does end up going down as well. They lose 2 turrets. They take a sentry, but still, one of those 2 kills was important for Cloud9, but they're just losing map objectives here.
Yeah, I don't think giving up 2 turrets for 1 life on Crystal Sentry is worth. If Cloud9 had taken 2 lives of Crystal Sentry and that 3rd one had bought them the entire, opening up the entire jungle of the Nova lineup to sort of chase them down in, then maybe it could have been considered worth, but even then, that's a stretch. But they did get the team fight, which is going to allow them to put pressure onto this Kraken now. And if they get Kraken, you would imagine that's a decent trade for C9 in their books. They got the flank onto the Nova lineup, they get the Kraken off the back of it, and that'll allow them to secure their own turrets. It doesn't even look like Nova want to contest. I don't even think C9 realize that Nova are not contesting. They're not even going to take Kraken. They're so scared because of the lack of vision that they have. They aren't going to take Kraken, and Nova didn't even try and contest it.
Truth's 1-shot 1 kill was on cooldown as well. Oh man, this is such a head-in-hands game. Well, from our perspective, and the viewer's perspective as well, but Cloud9 thinking it was more of a safe move to back off from that Kraken, didn't want to take a fight to Nova just yet, but now Nova just dominant control over the vision on their side of the jungle and the vision on that Kraken. Now they're just going to meet Cloud9 in lane, and Cloud9 wondering, could we have taken that Kraken? Was that a possibility for us? I'm sure if they watch the VOD, they'll be kicking themselves.
Yeah, but it's just the lack of vision that they had on that side of the jungle. They had no idea where Joseph gets locked in. Major issue.
Gets locked in. Yeah, triple silence though comes out from Old School. That's 1 big bad mojo. And in fact, Nova may be looking for a re-engagement here. Wartreads has been popped from Starboy. Has finished that Echo as well. So team fights are going to be devastating from Nova. But they're going to start up the Kraken. They're going to get it for free as well, it's Scoundrel.
Yeah, and there's only 2 Vein Crystal turrets left alive for C9. Could this be Nova finding a game against the unified Western Live champions? Although their split performances after the championships haven't been the kind of C9 that we knew, they are looking to set up a surprise gank here. Are Nova going to see this? Are Nova going to see this surprise? I don't think they're going to flare this one out.
Oh, they're going to jump straight onto Truth. Takes a whole butt load of damage. Beautiful fearsome shades. And that's another divine intervention onto Truth. He does end up going down in the end. It actually Starboy heals himself up as well. Beautiful knock up as well. Holy Nova, just such a ridiculous ability. Starboy is going to go down. He's going to pay for it with his life. That'll be 2 kills for Old School. Lone Delphi does get the stun onto Old School here. They're going to have to chase him underneath his turret, but they're not too worried whatsoever. As Gabe Bizzle is going to come up pretty big. Ace for Cloud9, a triple kill, delayed triple at least for Old School. Kraken still marching on their base. They have to deal with it now. It's going to take one of their crystal turrets.
I don't know. This might get 2 crystal turrets here. It's going to be a very, very tough race. The burst damage from Fortress is pretty good at dealing with Krakens, and actually Joseph coming back up, that means they should secure it. It will be close though. It's only just gone below half HP. If they lose this turret, that's a major blow for C9 here. Again, it will be close.
Oh, attack animation was winding up, but Kraken didn't end up going down. Oh, that was close. One shot, one kill from halfway across the map. Did almost execute that turret. Worth a try, though. Only a 30-second cooldown. Not bad, not bad.
I mean,
Now
two glimmer
Cloud9
shots
are on
will
the
kill.
ropes.
2 glimmer shots will kill that. So they need to be still very wary of a backdoor here. And that's why you can see Gabe Vizzle just laying down scout traps now, because he absolutely needs to. Got to realize that how influential a backdoor could actually be here. There is just the ability for, especially with Grace, for them to charge a turret and take it down. C9 had to be very wary about finding their engages properly too. Joseph also stacking his armor in a 1-2 format. We've seen him do this before. Just basically using his slots to get as much armor on the board as possible without having to upgrade to a metal jacket. Just stacking armor, knows he needs it to survive here against Truth, who basically two-shot him in that last fight.
Yeah, Truth's got all the protection in the world, though. Starboy, you know, he's got 3 levels in his ultimate. He's got the Echo as well. He's receiving more than enough protection. Starboy couldn't save him in that last fight, at least saved him for a little bit to get a little bit of extra damage off, which did cause them to end up losing all their lives, but the Kraken obviously was their price.
Oh, C9 out of position here. They could just have Kestrel go for the back door.
That's exactly what they're doing. Truth is just going to go for it. They're going to jump straight onto Lone at Delphi. They don't know this is happening. Divine intervention to keep him alive. There goes the Crystal Sentry, or the turret even. That's done it. Truth has just done it. The backdoor from Nova has just won them the game, and they're staying alive in this best of 3.
Wow, what a play there. That was the play that C9 had to be careful about, and they put themselves so out of position. When you're up against a potential backdoor, you never allow the enemy team to get on your side of the map with you on the other side of them, because they just can essentially stop you from backing. They can take a fight, and they can look for the backdoor. That was just poor final game positioning there from C9, and they got punished for it.
They got punished for it, and that'll be 1 apiece now for Cloud9 and Nova. Such a tense best of 3, but we're going to jump to the analyst desk. They're going to break this game down a little bit more.
Can you believe it? Nova taking Cloud9 to a 3rd game, and what a way to end it as well. Outmaneuvering Cloud9, a team that we know has incredible macro, incredible game knowledge, but getting outdone this time. Nova taking control of a situation and really making things happen.
Yeah, Nova being so decisive. I mean, that play where they took 2 turrets while Cloud9 was in their jungle, that is such a smart play because they know the timings. You know, they saw when the Crystal Sentry went down, they were like, okay, it's going to take them minimum 6 seconds to get here. We can just go up and take another turret for our troubles. It was incredibly smart, and they did a great job early on of shutting down Joseph in the jungle.
It certainly felt like Cloud9 had the edge, though, for the majority of the game. It definitely, to me, aside from like the Kraken that Nova took, it felt like C9 were definitely in the driver's seat.
Yeah, top of the 2 turret mistakes that Cloud9 did. Another mistake is there's one critical fight where they chased into a narrow corridor against 2 heroes that have skill shots and AoE, like from Grace, etc. And that was a really bad engage from Cloud9. They lost that engage, and then it cost them a huge fight that they just needed to win because of Grace scaling with the Echo, etc. So that's something that was interesting for Cloud9. They normally get positive trades, but this is the fight here. As soon as they go in a narrow corridor, they should have just backed off. They get baited into Grace, gets 2 stunned, and Joseph gets ordained, can't get out, gets blown up. And then they lose that fight there, and that's critical for Cloud9 here. Like, they needed to win this fight to continue pushing the objectives because they didn't get any turrets. They already lost 1 turret. So I was very curious to see why Cloud9 didn't push the lane before taking Sentry. That's what they normally always do. Instead, they let their lane push and lose 2 turrets, which is very, very interesting.
Yeah, and I think the key thing to highlight is the fact that Nova recognize that and are more than willing to capitalize, punish Cloud9 for that mistake.
Yeah, and like Suj was saying, it's something that like you typically see Cloud9 push the lane, then rotate down and look for in a jungle, a fight or objective, and they didn't take care of it this time around. It sort of lapsed, and they got punished heavily for it. It allowed Nova to suddenly regain control, and then from then on, Cloud9 was in doubt about where Nova was. I think they just lost track of where on the map Nova was in that instance, and then later on we saw it happen again where they started up the Kraken, had no idea where Nova was, got worried, and backed off of what would have been a free Kraken for them because their confidence was shaken in terms of their ability to know where their opponents were.
Yeah, this is why Koshka is so risky, because if you do not win that early game, it's going to be an uphill battle for you no matter what happens. Koshka needs to win the early game, and Cloud9 wasn't able to pull it off as how well Nova played. And I thought Gabe could have gone Echo. I thought Echo with Fortress Wolves would have been very helpful to block the additional CC and all the arrow glimmer shots from Kestrel.
Well, I mean, I want to talk a little bit more about that Kestrel as well, because 5-2-1 scoreline to finish the game when the majority of the game you're not actually winning the fights. That's an impressive scoreline to come on out with. He was Truth was the one that went and did the back door at the end of the day and actually won the game for Nova. Is this Kestrel something that has to be considered as a ban here coming out from Cloud9? Was he that significant of an impact, or was it more about the situations that he was finding himself in?
I think it was just more about the player himself. Truth is a player that we have been wanting to see step up for Nova really since the start of the season. When we first started talking about these teams way back 4.5 weeks ago, we said Truth was going to be the star player of this lineup. And when they perform well, it's usually while Truth is performing well. And it's not so much the hero he's on, it's just how he plays and how he maneuvers himself during these fights.
All right, well, Nova kicking things off with the Idris banner. It's going to be countered by a Catherine, the standard first ban for Cloud9 so far. And then Grace is going to come through for Nova, so rattling these off so far.
So they changed it up. Normally, Nova would they first picked Baron, actually, in the last one. So they changed it up and take the Grace. Cloud9 is going to go ahead and take the Vox again. That means Nova is probably going to ban away the Lyra from them, and then Baron is going to be banned there by Cloud9, which is a very smart ban from that perspective.
Yeah, for sure, getting rid of that Baron Grace combo that we know can devastate entire teams. But the Vox also going to be nice going into that Grace. You can dodge the Holy Nova, but also get that Poison Shiv to stack up onto opponents.
Yeah, it's not an end-all, be-all counter, but it is one of the carries that performs the best into a Grace. Kroll going to be banned away. We're starting to see Kroll draw all of these bans now because it was being picked so prevalently yesterday.
Yeah, let's see what Cloud9 picks. Are they going to pick up the Lyra here or potentially Lance? Yep, Lyra picked up. Nova now could play Adagio Grumpjaw. That's something they did play yesterday. They have a lot of options on their side in terms of what they want to play here. But I know one comp that they did pick with the Grace was the Adagio Grumpjaw combination. So that we could see that come out today here, actually.
Yeah, we haven't really seen it have much success recently, but that is going to be the Adagio. You're absolutely right, Suijay. Once again, the Weatherman predicts the future. It is going to be the Adagio Grumpjaw heal composition coming on through. Now, Cloud9, like, how do you answer this with your final
Sky
pick?
or Rhyme? I don't know if Joseph plays Rhyme, though. Does he play Rhyme? Rhyme would be very good into this composition because they can just jump onto the Grumpjaw or the Adagio and just engage really hard with the fortified health and the heal from Lyra. However, Grumpjaw and Adagio are super bursty. So, like, I think Sky or Rhyme would make sense. Sky would counter this comp late game for sure. So Sky might be the option that Cloud9 takes here, but they gotta survive that early game aggression.
Could you see them potentially going for a Scarf as well? Because just Scarf into Grumpjaw with this composition, the Grumpjaw is so integral to getting in and being a bit of a front line for them that if you strip away all of those living armor stacks right off the bat, it can work really well.
Ooh,
but they are going to go for the Rhyme, okay?
Instead of the Sky. Okay. I think this is more risky because I do like Joseph Sky. It's so good. I have not seen his Rhyme, so he's gonna have to land these skill shots, and this game will literally depend on how Joseph plays.
All right, so Joseph definitely going to be the player to watch here. We've seen Rhyme have great success into Grumpjaws in the past. How are we feeling about this Grumpjaw composition, though? Because as of recent weeks, we've talked about it a lot. Grumpjaw not having anywhere near as much success as it previously was. What do Nova have to do to actually use this composition correctly?
It's just going to be trying to work around this Rhyme. Even for the side of Nova, Rhyme is the most important part of this game because they need to be able to get around the Rhyme and prevent him from being able to get as much fortified health as possible. They have to focus on leaving the Rhyme until later. It's very easy to just try and focus everything onto the Rhyme, but he's going to take so long to kill. They need to focus on the Vox instead.
All right, well, we'll see how this one is going to go. This is going to be the third game of our second semi-final coming to your screens. Make sure to let us know who you want to take this one on Twitter using that hashtag Vainglory8. But it's time to get into the third and final game of the second semi-final and see who our second finalist will be. Cloud9 versus Nova.
Thank you very much, guys. My name is George, joined by Scoundrel once again. Then number 3, like they mentioned, Nova versus Cloud9. There's been a few upsets over the past week or over the past couple of days with Hat Rogue beating TSM. And now can Nova take this one and can they go to the finals by beating Cloud9?
It's definitely possible, but we have seen a Rhyme eat apart this type of composition before. Gangstars specifically pulled out something very similar with Araki Zoro on the Adagio and obviously Xenotech on the Grumpjaw. Rhyme absolutely tore it apart because once the Grumpjaw was taken out of the picture, Rhyme just did, or rather the Adagio just didn't have the damage to deal with the Rhyme's fortified health. Is Joseph looking maybe to take that one away but doesn't get it? A very aggressive invade by Nova. They're actually going to go for the back camps here from Joseph too. That's really interesting. And it doesn't look like C9 are going to be able to punish that either. The direct punish for a back invade, especially when you commit your laner to it as well, is to have your laner rotate to their backs and then get something from it. But because of the positioning of Starboy, Old School wasn't able to find that easily.
It's super punishing of Cloud9. Man, Nova really, really want to win this game. They want to show that they can contend with the best. And now Truth and Starboy, they've got a lot of healing in this lane, and maybe this is something Cloud9 need to be not careful of, but more wary later on, and just got to keep in the back of their minds that, yeah, Truth, he's going to be able to heal up, but Starboy's going to be there too when Lone Delphi joins the fray. Is this a composition that when it gets late that Nova just can't be stopped, or is this Rhyme just going to outscale them completely?
I actually think that C9 are going to be doing better in the late game, and it is for multiple reasons. Rhyme does do well into Grumpjaw. I think Adagio's damage output might not be enough to deal with Rhyme once Grumpjaw is down. I think the combo between Grumpjaw and Adagio is very strong, but if the lockup onto Lone Delphi is good, then wait a second.
Oh, Old School was caught. Yep, there you go. Holy Nova to finish off the kill. Gabe Bizzle goes down as well to Lone Delphi. That was over before it even started, it seemed. Nova find the first 2 kills of the game, and Joseph wonders kind of what's all happening up in that lane.
Yeah, and Joseph not able to get into position to help that, and again, a little bit over-aggressive of Gabe Bizzle and Old School in lane, and Nova on the brink of starting a very interesting sequence of events, putting themselves right into the lead in the very get-go here. If they can get the advantage and run with it, they should be able to snowball this C9 composition. Another thing that I wanted to touch on about talking about counters and that kind of thing, I actually think that Poison Shiv is going to be a very influential item in this game. We know that Old School is going to build Poison Shiv. That's just sort of integral to Vox's build path these days, and it is very, very good against Adagio and Grace. There is not going to be a Poison Shiv realistically picked up for Nova, and if they do, they are building away from that Grumpjaw's path. So you're going to be able to essentially heal this Rhyme for free, making his fortified health more effective as well. That's one worry that I think is going to be sitting on the back of Nova's mind. Who actually builds a Poison Shiv? It might even be integral for Lone Delphi to pick it up, despite it not being the classic Grumpjaw weapon power build path.
Certainly not. Lone Delphi though wants to make something happen in this lane. Old School gets jumped on that Hangry, doing so much work. Sonic Zoom to get out in safety. Joseph in that front line, like you said, that 4-5 health doing a lot of work for him in this early stage of the game, and late stage of the game when he gets all too tanky as well. Delphi finds Old School again, just cannot find that Hangry landing. And now Joseph, oh, what? Hang on a minute, Joseph. Truth went straight over aggressive, and that's going to cost 2 kills now. And 2 of those will go over to Joseph. That is extremely good for Cloud9, and that is exactly the mistakes you want to best left avoided.
Yeah, you really do not want to be making those kind of mistakes as Nova when you've already taken a good early start against the C9 guys. Giving them 2 free kills and allowing them to round things out essentially is just going to, you know, make it a lot harder for you as this game progresses. And like we said, as this game goes on, you feel Joseph's going to get better and better into this composition. It is looking like Lone Delphi's going the classic Grumpjaw build path. He's going for the Tension Bow into the double turrets monocle, which does mean that it's unlikely that we're going to see a Poison Shiv anytime soon, meaning that Lyra is going to be even more viable. Usually, you know, Lyra does get shut down a little bit by a Poison Shiv. Not going to happen this game, you feel. There was an opportunity for Nova to really start this snowball off, but I mean, looks like C9 have kind of weathered the storm a little bit.
Right now they have, and especially with those 2 kills landing on Joseph as well, that's going to accelerate his growth. Nice bright bulwark to stop the advances of Lone Delphi. Takes a lot of trading damage as well. Oh, Starboy in a lot of trouble here. However, Holy Nova will just bring him to safety. Old School just punishing the lack of range that Nova have on their main engage tool, which is the Grumpjaw. Takes about half his HP and has to back off. Has got that Tension Bow finished, however, so we'll be able to do a fair chunk of damage if he does land onto a key target.
Do remember that Bright Bulwark can kind of shut this Lyra. Bright Bulwark can kind of shut Grumpjaw down as well. If you can Bright Bulwark predicting the ultimate of the Grumpjaw, it will stop him from moving through that Bright Bulwark. As technically, the ultimate is classed as a movement ability, meaning that you can kind of don't need to crucible it or whatever. You can just try and use the Bright Bulwark to protect from it. So also a Valkyrie, good way of, if you position it really well, a good way of releasing a target from the Grumpjaw ultimate if Grumpjaw doesn't reflex block that Valkyrie coming out from Rhyme. He has now got Shatterglass first, something that we've seen a couple of the North American Rhymes do more often. There is the Bright Bulwark.
Oh my goodness, and it's stopped the stuffed as well. He just dives straight in though, gets the hangry off into Old School, but look at that massive heal. Valkyrie comes down onto Starboy and Truth. They're forced to retreat, and now they just jump onto Lone Delphi. They cut him down. Old School is going to find that kill. Those discs are doing all too much damage, and I just can't get over the disengage in Cloud9. Gave Bizzle hot on the fingers using that Bright Bulwark to safety.
Don't you love it when you just talk about something and then it happens?
Oh yes, that's exactly what I was going to say.
It's always a nice feeling, just like you're just talking about something and it happens like literally right after. And it was really nice play. And also you saw how difficult it is going to be for Nova to burst I Love Joseph down without the Poison Shiv. He's got the Shatterglass, which will make his fortified health a little bit more powerful, because remember, he gains fortified health based on the damage that he deals through his basic attacks, and those basic attacks scale with CP. So the more CP you get onto those basic attacks, the more fortified health that the Rhyme is going to get, and therefore the tankier he's going to be. So that's a really good way of surviving as a Rhyme, is by having a Shatterglass, because you get the extra damage coming through your basic attacks, and that gives you the extra fortified health.
Nova, right now, how are they going to deal with this Rhyme in the late game? That's the scary thing. He's got a Shatterglass even first item, so packing even more of a punch. We are 7 minutes in. Not the gold lead hasn't really extended all too far in either direction. Now Joseph just happily farming up away on his little Rhyme, and now Nova actually taking that as a chance to actually start this gold miner, but Gabe Bizzle will be here off to the sidelines and might actually dissuade Nova completely, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen.
They are indeed, and C9 just trying to do their best to stop this gold miner going. Has gold miner been... It looked like gold miner had been minion candied. I think he has. That just makes him even more powerful. That's a hard-hitting gold miner when he's got that minion candy on him.
I mean, to stop Cloud9 taking him, I guess. I don't know what that was about, but hey. They know better than me. But I mean, using that minion candy not on your own minion seems a bit odd, but hey-ho.
You don't see it very often, do you? There is the Bright Bulwark coming out, but Grace had already managed to channel through her benediction, so did actually get through to her target.
How much, if at all? I know it doesn't affect the Kraken at all, but I'm trying to think why that would be used right there. I mean, you can just run up and then go, haha.
It makes it more difficult for the enemy team. He's going to hit harder, and that means it's a little bit more risky for the enemy team to go for it if they look for an engage, as the gold miner has been minion candied.
Oh, Paul, passageway. Lone Delphi's caught off to the side here. Hang on a second. That's going to be a massive crucible used as well. That's going to be a beautiful Bright Bulwark stunned out yet again. Starboy, though, as the divine intervention. Valkyrie comes down, burst Judgment 2. All the ultimates thrown into a basket, but who comes out alive? Lone Delphi is just going to get chased down. Cloud9 members refusing to die at this point, even though Starboy did use his ultimate to try and save one of them. They're just going to look for this turret.
And Joseph's going a very sustain-orientated build here as well. He's going for the Eve of Harvest, meaning that he's going to be even harder to take down in this fight. So they're going to get this first turret of the game. They're going to root up Starboy. They're going to look for a kill. The Starboy will run away. And this Rhyme seems to be the icy nail in the coffin of Nova right now. And Nova don't seem to have the answers.
Don't have the answers, but they need them. They need to be able to do this encounter. This is one of the teams that want to be able to prove to everybody and to Cloud9 that they can compete with the best up there. But right now, not looking so strong. Old School's going to be able to defend this turret, you can imagine, as he does push forward. That turret about a third HP right now. Lone Delphi, he's working towards one of those monocles, and he has the tension bow to his name at the moment. But then you look at the items across the board for Joseph and Old School. Shatterglass, Eve of Harvest, perfect for them. They got a poison shield and a tension bow, with that monocle just actually being finished by Lone Delphi. Cloud9 just outputting so much more damage than Nova can actually feasibly deal with.
And Nova don't have enough damage to get through the sort of the very sustained heavy front line that C9 have brought to the table. Again, we talk about that poison shiv. It's so effective against Lyra, but the build path that you have that's classically there for a Grumpjaw just doesn't allow you to achieve it. Joseph coming in here. Gold Miner is going to try and get finished off, but it gets stolen.
Oh my god, yeah, it did get stolen. First Judgment was a little bit too late, and Truth is just going to get jumped on here, but Old School is off in trouble in the sidelines. There's the stuff onto him, but Lone Delphi does get stunned up. They do manage to take out Old School, but they trade 1-for-1. Joseph still doing a lot of work. Valkyrie straight onto Truth. Does take him out with that Spire, and now Starboy is the last member alive for Nova. They're just going to chase him down at 4 or 5 health, doing a lot of damage, or a lot of work even. It does no damage technically. Cloud9 find the ace. They take the gold miner as well, and they're just going to take the turret too.
Not even technically, just doesn't do damage, Jules.
Yeah, not so, yeah.
But no, I mean, you could see, like, Rhyme almost virtually unkillable in that scenario. Old School, you know, well, there you go, just gets stopped in his tracks from the end of the Grumpy, trying to go on to Joseph right now, but they're going to force him to boots away. Gabe Bizzle's healing doing so much work as well. The sustaining these fights is so difficult to deal with because, like we said, no way to reduce that healing right now from the Nova composition. I think what would be really unique is if you had an item in VG that allowed you to apply mortal wounds as a CP build path, you know? Like,
that
you deal
would
a
be
certain
quite interesting.
You deal a certain amount of CP damage and it applies mortal wounds, because then you wouldn't be limited to having to have a poison shiv in your build. It's just an interesting
kind of cool. Just interesting thought. Yeah, I can appreciate that. It's always fascinating, actually, when, well, I guess just MOBAs in general bring out new items and just slot them into the game, and people have to figure out where they belong and how new build and how it fits into newer build paths. And so that'll be an interesting item to be added maybe later on. There's only one way to apply mortal wound at the moment, and that's doing that weapon-powered build. But
yeah, some people have it built into their kits. You know, like Taka, his ex-Retsu applies a mortal wound, but Fortress, he can apply mortal wounds, for instance. But yeah, for most CP carries, there aren't many ways to achieve that. So usually you're kind of almost constrained to having the weapon-powered carry build a mortal wound because heals are just so strong. In fact, Poison Shiv is the reason that heal compositions got a lot weaker for a time, because it was just such a good item to build, and therefore heal comps were kind of countered by that specific item.
Heal comp is exactly the thing Cloud9 want to avoid quite heavily. I mean, the heal composition in general has been evolving over the last few months, and I look back to things like the Unified Championships and where Grace wasn't there, and you're saying, okay, so Lyra Adagio, if a team if they got that, it wasn't over in the draft. It was just like, how did you let that happen? It's extremely hard to deal with. But now you throw Grace into the mix, this third humongous healer that comes into the game, and then Field's Echo second item. It's even more terrifying for some of these compositions. Cloud9 now looking for something here. Now, but the problem is, Nova have to be the one not to react. They have to be the proactive one. They have to make sure Lone Delphi can find a key target with his stuffed. But at the moment, he's been denied more often than not. Speaking of denial, Cloud9 may be looking for a little something here. Brightborg has been used. This is Lone Delphi's time. He does actually swallow up Gabe Bizzle there, so this is going to just lead him.
There's the ultimate.
Get stunned up. Beautiful Valkyrie versus Judgment. It's not even going to finish his cooldown as Joseph just runs through them. Atlas Pauldron isn't going to stop them now. They might just find here another ace. Nova, Starboy again, last one alive. They're just going to chase him down. Benediction, not needed. Joseph comes up big. Old School as well. They find the ace, and there goes another turret.
And there was the Valkyrie releasing Gabe Bizzle from the clutches of the Grumpjaw Ultimate, and C9's sustain and damage output in these fights is just too hard to contend with here for Nova. That Adagio just not dealing enough damage, specifically to Joseph through that fortified health, to even pose a significant threat. The Crucible is there for the Adagio Ultimate too. It looks like Gabe Bizzle is working towards an Echo on the Lyra. A double Sigil can provide so much healing, and like we said, when it's not countered, that will just be, you feel, the death blow through healing for C9 against this Nova composition.
Damage doesn't kill you in this game, it's the healing that does. That's exactly what Cloud9 again are looking to do. Heal up, same as Nova, but Nova hasn't got any heals at all. Echo has finished though. Let's not scratch that off the board just yet. Nova have got that massive frontline heal, but Starboy, more often than not, he is being left alone, yes, but Truth is just being taken out so quickly that he can't really do anything. He has hit the 3-item spike of the Alternating Current, Broken Myth, and the Frostburn there as well. But those Versa Judgments, Joseph is just shrugging them off.
But the problem with this composition into a rhyme is that as an Adagio, you naturally need to follow up your front line. So you're just bringing yourself into the range of rhyme so easily. There's the block. Oh, it doesn't actually get blocked.
Well, yeah, it doesn't get blocked. Valkyrie's going to come down there. There's the first massive heal onto Lone Delphi. Might need to use another one in a minute. Holy Nova onto 2 of them as well. Another massive heal onto Lone Delphi. Does get reduced by Old School, though. Those mortal wounds applying the stacks. He almost falls down instantly, but Old School ends up just running and gunning him down. That's it. Game over. Cloud9, triple kill, ace as well. Scoundrel, what's happening? This is not going for Nova. Cloud9 are running all over them. They just can't find the fights.
It's just a compositional win for Cloud9. It's just a compositional win. There's no other way of sort of phrasing this. Cloud9 won this in draft, and they've executed it really well. Again, you know, not able to limit those Lyra heals means that this rhyme is virtually unkillable. 508 literally unkillable. And Cloud9 just going to win the game right here, right now.
Right here, right now. There goes 1, there goes 2 turrets. The Hall of Nova have spawned, but are they going to be able to stop that damage? I don't think so. Old School sends one flying little disc at the Vein Crystal. Ends up going down, and that'll be Cloud9. Such a decisive, a little bit of an anticlimactic win. They seem to win it from almost minute 1.
Yeah, it's just the rhyme pick, just so good, and the fact that it's so hard to limit that Lyra sustain onto him because of the way that the weapon power Grumpjaw naturally wants to build. Adagio wants to follow up on his melee frontliners with his Gift of Fire and his basic attacks, and that brings him quite nicely into the rhyme's range, which then allows him to chunk him down because he doesn't have any shielding. C9 played it so well into Nova. Nova really couldn't do much.
Beautiful play from Cloud9, expertly drafted as well. We're going to jump onto the analyst desk and they can break down that series.
I feel like the final game of that series was like a perfect example of how important counterpicking is in Vainglory, because in those fights, there was so little this Grumpjaw could actually do up against the likes of a Rhyme.
Yeah, I mean, we said before the game even started, the Rhyme was going to be the most important facet of this game. It does well. It does extremely well. And Cloud9 does extremely well as a result. It was just, Joseph completely dominated this matchup and really was one of the main reasons why they got this victory so cleanly.
Yeah, he was so clutch too. Every time Grumpjaw ate somebody, I think 3 times or 4 times in the game, he used his ultimate stun to get that person out of the Grumpjaw stuff. I mean, it was amazing plays by Joseph there. And Cloud9 played so decisive and aggressive. Like, Grace didn't have that much defense. She just built Fountain, War Treads, and a Rushed Echo. She was actually pretty squishy, so they would engage Grace first, and then Grumpjaw would go in, and then they would back off Kite, and then their counter engages were just so good. Like, Nova just couldn't respond to the counter engage. And this Goldmine steal by Old School was just amazing. This really turned the game in their favor here because they get a huge lead here by winning this fight and be able to get the second turret low and then give them the second turret. So this was a great fight by Cloud9 and Joseph.
Another thing that they did really well was their target selection in these fights. They would start off and pick whichever target was easier for them to get on. As soon as the Divine Intervention came out, they would stop fighting that target and immediately go on to the other damage dealer and take them out because they knew that now that the Holy Shield and the Divine Intervention heal could no longer be used to try and save them, whereas the other target is going to